I'm Philippa Hoskin. I'm the Donnelley Fellow Librarian at the Parker Library at Corpus Christi College, Cambridge, and I want to introduce you to our latest acquisition here. This is in many ways the sort of document that people might have thrown on one side, have thought of as insignificant, but there's actually so much more to it than there seems. It's a set of roundels in parchment from 1573, and they were made at the instruction of Matthew Parker, Archbishop of Canterbury, and of course the man who left us the manuscripts which founded the library here. They're intended to go as a gift tag, if you like, with a gift that he's making to Queen Elizabeth I. So what's going on in 1573? Why is he giving a gift to Elizabeth? Well, it's summer and Elizabeth is on progression. Every year she travels around part of her kingdom to see and to be seen, and also to escape London, which is not a great place to be in the summer. And this year, in 1573, she's going through parts of Kent. And while she's going through Kent, she's going to spend about a fortnight in Canterbury. Now, of course, Matthew Parker is Archbishop of Canterbury, and that's where he is. He's living in the Bishop's Palace at Canterbury, and he is delighted that the Queen is coming. Partly because she's his queen, and it gives her a chance to express his loyalty in a way that a bishop or archbishop or lord would have done through feasting and masques and plays. Partly because it's a very special year for Elizabeth. She's 40 years old. This is around her birthday, so this is a wonderful chance to see your queen. And also because the church is slightly feeling insecure in 1573. There's criticism of it from Puritans about the way it feasts, about the way it behaves, and he wants to make sure that Elizabeth is on his side, that he's got the Queen on his side. So he prepares a wonderful 40th birthday feast for us. We have very detailed descriptions of it, how her nobles sat on her table. Lower tables were full of local people from Canterbury, some of them very important, some of them less so, the people who travelled with her. And it's a very fine feast, and he gives many gifts. One of the gifts he gives is a gold standing salt. Salt is an exceptionally important thing in 16th century England, and giving elaborate sort of salt containers is a very popular thing to do. Elizabeth has lots of them, but she can always do with one more. And so he has this wonderful gold, elaborate standing salt. It's a standing salt because you couldn't pass it around. It's probably about that high, they often are, and it has a very elaborate cover. And inside it'll just have a tiny scoop because you can't afford the salt to fill all of that, so it just has a small amount of salt in it. This is a gold salt, standing salt, and we know from the description that it has a knob sort of on the top of the cover that's a golden boat, a galleon with a large lozenge rectangular diamond in it, and it also has agate gems, intaglios, inset gems. One's in the cover, and it's a gem of George and the Dragon with round it the French phrase honi soit qui mal y pense, so it's related to the Order of the Garter, very important. And then we're told inside, in that sort of oval, there's another gem set, and that's a cameo of the Queen. And also in this sort of oval, he's put 8 large gold coins, Portuguese coins, very valuable, quite modern coins, so another valuable bit to the gift. Where do the roundels come in? Well, these are what Parker gives to sort of interpret the gift for Elizabeth. As I say, they're a gift tag. They're something that expresses what he's trying to say with the gift. They're about the same size as those gold coins, so they probably sat inside the cover on top of them. What do they tell us? Well, the two most obvious ones here are pictures, and they're pictures of those gems that I just described to you. So this is George and the Dragon, and with that legend round in that beautiful blue and gold. And this is an image of a cameo of Elizabeth. It looks very like the very standard cameo image that we know Elizabeth approved. There are about 30 of them surviving, and there are probably many more, all from the same workshop. So it's an image that she likes. So those have round them different legends, different phrases. The one round the George and the Dragon tells me that Matthew is Elizabeth's loyal man, and it tells me that he's like Aeneas' companion Achates. Why is that important? Well, Aeneas' companion is a very loyal man, but also because Achates is very like another word, a Latin word for a gem, for agate. And those intaglio gems, remember, they're agate gems. Round the cameo down below, there are two phrases. One of them tells us that a person who wishes to be a good governor will continue to learn. They will learn and read and understand. It's a quote from the book of Proverbs. Another one is a phrase that actually is often found around miniatures of Elizabeth, and it's a little sort of poem, if you like, or part of a poem that was written for her. And it says, alas, that such great beauty can't last forever. I say often found around images of Elizabeth. Those two there, I think, would have been what you could see from the folded up, and we can see there are creases, so they must have been folded, from the folded up roundels when you first opened them. You could see those two gems. But what about all this writing? Well, these two on this side, you can see they have headings. They look quite formal, they're very clear handwritings. And I suspect those are the next two that you could see. And they tell you basic things about agate as a gem. So this one tells you the important information that agate will save you from the poison of scorpions. Always a very valuable thing to be saved from. The one below also tells you that agate will save you from care. So again, an important thing to give to your queen weighed down with the cares of the state. An agate gem can soothe your mind when you're full of care. These two over here are more sort of interesting facts about agate generally. So one of them tells us that Marshall, when he's rating different gems, says diamond is the greatest gem, but he puts agate second because it's not a clear gem, as in you can't, it's got colour to it, but he says it's clear as in you can still see through it. There's a clarity to it. And the one at the bottom tells us about a king called Pyrrhus, who owns an agate gem in a ring. And this is an agate gem, I think in red, that it shows you pictures of the 9 muses, each with the item that stands for a muse. But the great thing about it is someone didn't make it. It just happens to look like that. It's how it was naturally found. It's a curiosity. If you're still interested in agate, after you've read those, you can read the last 3 at the top. And these 3 are taken from 3 sort of authorities, generally on the natural world, on gems, on medicine, because of course something that can soothe you and save you from poison is also a medicine. So those people are Pliny, Isidore Seville, and a man called Dioscorides. And these tell you much more detail about agate, where it's usually found, it's named after a river. It also gives you all the information that you've got in the other roundels as well, at least certainly those 2. So if you wanted to get more detail, not just the sort of headline news, you can read all 3 of those. So it's really about, it's selling to Elizabeth the agate gems that have been placed in this beautiful gold as, useful for her cares, tying them into the things she's concerned about, the Order of the Garter, her own beauty. They also display something really clear about Parker. They're very much typical of the way Parker does things. Parker often, when he's giving away books, and so gives away something that's painted, something that makes something personal. So when he gives away copies of his own book or copies of his the Bible that he's involved in the translation of, he'll add in a painted frontispiece, something individual. And we know that he actually employed parchment painters in his household. So giving something with some painted gems, that's very Parker. So there's some painted images of gems that he's left. giving something that's learned, that tells you something about learning and knowledge, that's also really very Parker. After all, we know he's a researcher. He has researchers in his household, and he collects books and manuscripts. And we have here in the Parker his own copies of the Pliny, the Isidore of Seville, and the Dioscorides, printed copies, and in the case of the Isidore of Seville, we have a manuscript copy as well. So we know that he has the material here to write this. We can go and look at those books, and we can see that the information he provides is in those books, that he could have got it from the stuff that we have. It's interesting as well when you look at the handwriting on these. The handwritings change. So the handwriting around the gems, that's the same. And because we move into different sorts of, from capitals to lowercase letters, it's very likely that that's the same hand as well. But that's in a different handwriting. Each of those, again, are in different handwritings. Those three are all the same, and they actually run straight along. You read them straight over. That doesn't mean that a different person wrote each of these. One of the things we know about Parker is that he put a lot of stress on different sorts of handwritings. So he was one of those people of the mid to late 16th century who cared about what we call archaicizing hands, copying hands from early books. That might be Anglo-Saxon texts. We talk a lot about the Anglo-Saxon hands he copied, but he copied other later ones as well, 13th century hands, for example. None of these look to me like they're copied hands, but the fact that they're different was probably not a coincidence. It's something that he did deliberately. He cared about hands. And it's very likely that it's actually done just to make them attractive, so you can move from one to another and see that they're different. The lovely thing about having this manuscript here with us is that it fits so well into Parker's collection. As I've said, we can draw on the books that he owns. We can see the manuscripts and the books that he had here from which he took this information. We can see the letters where he is concerned about his relationship with the Queen and his relationship with church and state here in his collections. And we can see by looking at them those different ways that he used handwriting, colour, images and shape to express what most interested and concerned him.